This was my favorite color negative film in 35mm. First released in 2001, it was discontinued by Fujifilm in 2018, and in this video I'm going to show you how I shot my last two rolls of Natura 1600. Seeing an image from Johnny Home Movies on Instagram in 2018 was one of the things that pushed me to try film in the first place. I really liked the color palette, but I really liked the grain. It seemed to have a really natural looking texture to it that stood out to me in contrast to the digital grain that people were adding to their pictures with Instagram filters, and I remember thinking, okay, maybe film is a thing to try. Like I mentioned, it was discontinued in 2018, so in early 2019 when I was beginning to experiment with film, it was already becoming expensive, which back then was like $20 a roll, but you could still get it fresh in date with the last batch expiring in December of 2019. So right from my first roll of it, I already had the impression that it was something special, and I always tried to shoot it with that in mind. I ended up buying a total of 10 rolls, and I kept them in my freezer, shooting them sparingly over the years, until this last December I was down to my last 2 rolls. By now they were pushing 5 years past their expiration date, and as much as I wanted to save this film forever, the thing about film is that it's kind of alive, and so it spoils over time, and it's never going to look better than when shot and developed today. Natura 1600 was a high-speed color negative film that was part of Fujifilm's Superior line of consumer films. It was released in 2001, and the Natura variant specifically was sold to the Japanese domestic market, while outside of Japan it was branded as Superior 1600. It was also launched alongside a high-end point-and-shoot camera called the Natura S, also by Fujifilm. I haven't gotten the chance to shoot with the Natura S camera, but I've heard really good things, especially about the 24mm f1.9 lens, which is really fast and wide for a point and shoot. I already have the Minolta TC1, which is the best point and shoot camera of all time, so I loaded my last roll of Natura and made some snapshots while spending time with my family over the holidays. My dad, my brother, and I all have birthdays around the same time. 3 of us went together to a great omakase restaurant to celebrate.
And the board meeting was at noon, and I still had 10 minutes of prep.
The food was fantastic and probably the best sake pairing that I've ever had. I thought the TC1 was a great choice because, well, it's a fantastic camera with a beautiful lens, but I think it also honors Fuji's vision or intention for this film. The Superior line of films was always targeted to the consumer market, and with the high-end Natura S point-and-shoot, I think Fuji intended for this film to be a fitting companion to document your important life with. The TC1 also has a relatively small maximum aperture of f3.5, so having a faster film helps keep the shutter speed higher and more comfortable for hand-holding. I did shoot this roll at 800 ISO because even though it was kept in the freezer, it's still 5 years expired, and the higher the sensitivity of the film, the faster it degrades. I've also always found the TC1's meter to be a bit sensitive to highlights, and in my experience, Natura loves light. Meanwhile, I loaded the other roll in my M3 with a Fujinon 50mm 1.2 lens. This lens is a special one that was part of a race by manufacturers in the 1950s to make ultra-fast lenses. I think it renders space in a really special way, and most of my 10 rolls of Natura over the years have been shot with this lens. My brother and I went to my favorite place in DC, which is the Botanic Gardens, right by the Capitol building. Technically, Natura has a daylight color balance, which is an interesting choice for such a fast film, but something I've always appreciated about the Superior films is their patented 4th color layer, which adds a cyan layer that is supposed to improve the color reproduction in artificial light. I've always loved how Fujifilm films interpret reds and greens, and there's quite a lot of green at the Botanic Gardens, so these actually ended up being some of my favorite photos of 2024. I loved this scarlet textile in the Native American Museum, but I think I underexposed the negative a bit and I just couldn't get the edit quite right, but this green one turned out so nicely. I developed both of these rolls myself at home in C41 chemicals. Then I scanned them using a digital camera and inverted them with Negative Lab Pro. The inversion process is where things get really tricky, especially with color negative film. These films were made to be so flexible, and there's so many small choices that the person doing the inversion makes that you can really make them look like anything that you want. But I do find that the color relationships on Fujifilm's emulsions have always been an easier starting point for me than Kodak's to edit and get the results that I'm after. I feel like many of us in the film photography community, myself certainly included, have a tendency to get caught up on rare and special films that aren't made anymore, so we hoard them away in our freezers for special occasions. But the truth is, with these expired films, they are never going to look better than when shot and developed today, so I think the best way to honor them is to go out and shoot them. Honestly, when I saw how both of these rolls came out, I had to stop myself from going onto eBay and paying some ridiculous price for definitely expired film that has an unknown storage history. Actually, these three images finally convinced me that I need to take the plunge and try color darkroom printing, so definitely hit subscribe if that sounds interesting to you, because this winter I'm working on a video where I'll be printing some of these negatives using the RA4 process. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this review of my favorite color film, and let me know in the comments if you've shot any rolls of Natura and what discontinued film you would most like to see brought back. As always, shoot more film.